Hey everybody, Mike Miller, Herald Times, coming to you from the Xfinity Center in College Park, Maryland, where I am maybe the only person, second person left in the building after this one, a 78-75 Maryland win over IU, which has now lost two in a row here as it continues its stretch of 6 of 8 games coming away from Assembly Hall. Um, Obviously, not a must-win game here in early January, mid-January, but certainly I think a meaningful one, an impactful one when you look at the Big Ten standings, the kind of game where you're standing in the middle of March, coming off the Big Ten regular season, coming off the Big Ten tournament. You're looking at seeding, you're looking at resume, you're looking at this game and saying, if you're Indiana, you let an opportunity get away from you, especially after you start off as well as Indiana started off, answering Archie Miller's call for better, tougher, more purposeful play at the start of games, an issue that's really pockmarked the season to date for Indiana. But they came out with a 9-0 run, a run that I think was built on both ends of the court. You had patient offense, purposeful offense again, and assertive defense coming out too. It was everything this Indiana team has struggled to be in some of these opening segments early on. It was a lead that eventually grew to 14 points midway through the half. I guess it was by the 7-minute mark. 7 minutes left in the first half. I was up by 14. Early lead that was built with balance. I mean, you had, I think, Justin Smith, Devontae Green, Al Durham combined for 12 of IU's first 14 points. I think in all it was everything you'd want to see from this Indiana team, everything you hadn't really seen coming together in a way that Indiana's not really produced since the Marquette game. That's the last time I can really think of a start that was this just well rounded in terms of Indiana's way to have the defense feed the offense, to clamp down on defense, to double down on Bruno Fernando and prevent him from really going off early, to really limit Maryland from some of the looks underneath and challenge guys like Jalen Smith from becoming a factor points-wise. But as well as this game started for Indiana, it got away from it over the middle stretches. A big part of that was defense. It was seizing defensive rebounds. It was keeping Maryland off the glass. Maryland, I don't have it in front of me. Give me a minute. Maryland had 42 rebounds to Indiana's 25. 18 of those Maryland boards came on the offensive glass. It was somewhere. Maryland's length and size, you knew coming into this game, was going to be an issue, especially given the injuries Indiana's dealing with. Given just the size and athleticism that Maryland presents. But Indiana here did not have a healthy Deron Davis. It yet again did not have the necessary production from its bench, and it also struggled without Justin Smith. Justin Smith, clearly I think the best defender on this team right now, picked up end of the night with 4 fouls. It was something he was struggling with at times. I think played 22 minutes. But here's maybe something that's telling. When Justin Smith was on the floor, Indiana outscored Maryland by 22 points. It was plus 22 in the plus minus, and you don't want to obviously get too lost in the plus minus stats, but I think it was telling in the sense that Indiana needed Justin Smith on the floor and obviously wasn't able to afford to do that for stretches at times tonight. It was an Indiana team that figured out the early game issues that have really plagued it, as I mentioned, throughout much of the season, but obviously coming out in the second half. Juwan Morgan gets a quick layup, and Maryland suddenly off to a 16-0 run that really provided the launching point for the Maryland victory tonight. The positive, I think, for Indiana is maybe twofold, both personnel related. For one, you got Rob Finney back, and I think, and Urban Langford even said, just the fact that they had Rob on the bench early, that they had reinforcements on the bench, whether it was Deron Davis, who was trying to go tonight, whether it was Jake Forrester, who was available and dressed, just going into this game, recognizing that maybe they had a little bit more depth, maybe they had a few more bodies than they'd had on Sunday at Michigan. That seemed to give guys energy, knowing that they could go out on the defensive end and really go all out early on. and really play, with their hair on fire, which they did. So I think that was a product in some of the energy you saw from this Indiana team early on, just having a guy like Rob Phinisee back and having other guys on that bench ready to contribute when you needed them. I think Rob Phinisee finished with 2 points in 17 minutes. Those 2 points were the only 2 points from Indiana's bench, which continues to really struggle both again with injuries and general ineffectiveness. I mean, it's just you're seeing guys just not really give you enough right now. Obviously, Deron Davis was just not able to go tonight. Had an ankle injury. Archie Miller said after the game that he actually wishes he hadn't played Deron Davis. He said it was unfair to Deron to even ask him to go on the court tonight. Archie said he should have leaned on Clifton Moore, and sounds like Jacob Forrester maybe was another guy he mentioned. But it didn't seem Deron Davis was quite ready to go. Evan Fitzner is really having a struggle of it right now, whether it's shooting, but also just not really giving IU the length it needs in its depth. Obviously, Zach McRoberts is not nearly his usual self as he deals with the nagging back issues that have been an issue for him all season long. You hope from now as you go into this Nebraska game that it's you can get Rob Phinisee back up to speed, and maybe that reshifts your rotation a little bit with Devontae Green sliding back into his previous role. Devontae Green was, I think, probably more good than bad. Although I think again some of the shot selections were essentially turnovers tonight for Devontae Green. He finished with 15 points. Didn't have an actual turnover tonight in the 27 minutes he played. But again, some of the shot selection was not probably what you want it to be from one of your starting guards. It was not I don't think that's the reason you lose this game, but it was again a little bit more of taking the good with the bad of Devontae Green, which I think again at this point you kind of just know that's the player he is, and that's the player you have to understand you're going to get when you play him. A boatload of minutes or 27 minutes tonight. Kind of going back to the original transition here, another bright spot for Indiana was Romeo Langford, who just played his tail off here at the end of the game. Played a really solid just overall game, but especially late. Had 12 of his 28 points in the final 3:18 of regulation. Shot the ball well. Had I think 3 of 6 from beyond the arc, and I think he had all 9 of his free throws. A really, really, really solid stretch of play from Romeo Langford continues here tonight in Maryland. I don't have the conference-only stats in front of me, but my gosh, I mean, the guy's just he's been really, really good since Big Ten play started, and Indiana's really needed every bit of it. Now it's just a matter of getting Juwan Morgan, getting guys like that help, whether it's getting Juwan Morgan help underneath, getting him some extra bodies to do the work down there with him, whether it's finding that elusive third scorer. Things this Indiana team has to figure out moving forward. Again, this was it's the kind of game where had you had a few of those things go your way tonight, or had you had maybe a more full complement of players, you might have been able to get out of here with a win. It was certainly a game that Indiana seemed poised to seize at a certain point. You get 13 minutes into the game, you're up 14. I don't think you really could have asked for a whole lot more from Indiana in its first half. I mean, leading by 14 at one point, I think taking an 8-point lead into halftime. I think Maryland students are still on break, so it wasn't the full road atmosphere, but it was still loud at times. To play that way on the road, to play that way off a mini bye, to recognize the need to start games better with more purposeful play, I think that was all good. Defensively, I thought that was, it was both ends of the floor tonight for Indiana, at least for the first 13 minutes. But unlike the Hoosiers, it was the middle part of the game where things started to unravel. Maryland made their run, and Indiana just didn't seem to have an answer for it. A lot of that was due to the problems that Maryland's size and athleticism presents for a lot of teams, and especially Indiana right now, given their situation with their depth and injuries. But again, it is a game that you could very well be looking back on in March and just kind of shaking your fist at and wondering, what could have been. So IU's back at it Monday night at home. They get Nebraska. I think it's a 6:30 start on BTN, so I'm going to check on that. But that'll do it here from Maryland after Indiana's 78-75 loss at the Xfinity Center. See you back in Bloomington.